I can pass you this as well.
Jim, I can't believe it. They actually gave me a mic and have asked me to speak. Usually he unplugs it. So I don't get a chance to say too much. But it's really a pleasure for me to introduce Jim to you today. I've known Jim for over 40 years. I practice. I'm a lawyer, and have been involved with Jim in many things over that period of time. We're both based out of Halifax, but we have interest all over the Atlantic Canada and beyond. But Jim, from a business standpoint, he's been involved in industries like the home fuel industry. It's a family industry, but he's also into the hotel industry. We're in the storage business industries and apartments. Jim's one of the founding directors of a company called Killam Properties REIT. Most of you have heard about that. Well, Jim was one of the founders of that particular company. And it goes on and on, other interests. But one of the things that we've focused on with another friend of ours at the back, Mike Crosby, is for the last 40 years we've been recreational salmon fishermen. So Jim has a big interest in that, and as well as just not fishing, but in the camps and things like that. So that led us into Jim's real passion, which I see every year now gets heavier and heavier. It's on the environment. Jim, I think, understands more than most that we're just here for a short time, and we're really stewards. We don't own the waters. We have to protect the waters. And you know, this brought back memories a few years ago, the salmon wars. We were involved in that. Jim was instrumental with others in that. The Eastern Shore, I can assure you that Premier Dexter does know who Jim Lawley is. And the people who lost understood who Jim was. And Jim's also a member of the Atlantic Salmon Federation, the scientific committees, and chairs some of the research committees. And the ASF has been very involved in Newfoundland and other areas. But Jim's been the fellow. But as we've moved forward over the last number of years, I've watched as he's gotten really involved in the things he's going to talk about today. And some of these things are on the cutting edge, and really, hey, these things are happening not in Europe, they're not happening in Norway, they're happening in one place. They're happening in Nova Scotia, and I can assure you that most of the things he's going to talk about are happening because this fella is involved in it, okay? So he's here today to talk to you about his passions. Jim.
Thank you very much, Eric. As usual, there's not much left to say after you introduce me. I want to thank the Twin Bays Coalition, first of all, for approaching me a couple weeks ago and out of their curiosity of what was going on land salmon-wise. They wanted to have a meeting with me, which I, of course, agreed to. And thank you, Sid and Beth and Joff, Drew, where we are, for coming to the meeting and listening. And I think what's really amazing is that these businesses are going on in our backyard in Nova Scotia, and they are changing businesses, in my opinion. It's not California, it's not Europe, it's happening right here in Nova Scotia. And I want to back up for just a minute as to why I'm here. Primary reason was the invitation, but I really have to go back to when I was a 17 or 18-year-old boy. I fell in love with salmon fishing, became a big passion of mine. And when I was in the University of Dalhousie, I could go most afternoons, cast a fly in the Stewiacke River. The Stewiacke River had a run of 10,000 fish, probably back then. It attracted people from all over the world. That was the real tourism business. And that business is gone today. And my son, who's 16 years old, will never get to fish that river. And so I said, this has got to change, because what I found out happened over that 8 or 10 year period was while all the fish are going down and down and down, industrial aquaculture was going up and up and up in the Bay of Fundy. Every river around the Bay of Fundy was virtually wiped out. Wild runs of Atlantic salmon now. So, I'm not that easily put off, and I got mad. And so we tried lobbying the government many times. As many of the panel speakers here, it's very difficult. So I concluded a mousetrap. And I met two gentlemen who had come here from England and they had started Sustainable Blue. They'd come here to do sea bass on land, but I thought this would work for Atlantic salmon. And so over the years the business evolved. People didn't really know what sea bass were in North America, so that was kind of my end to get involved in the business. And it's in Nova Scotia. It's in the Annapolis Valley. It's on land. The water, there's two ways you filter water. One's mechanical, the other's biological. Most things are mechanical. They're not that effective. A biological grows an indoor filter. It's like a swamp. It's nature. It takes a month to grow it. And what it does, it's Sustainable Blue. It's unfortunate that it didn't work, but the water just goes around the loop. We don't discharge any water. Nature cleans itself, and nature will do that if you give it the opportunity. And so, I wouldn't say it hasn't been without its fits and starts. There have been some. Any business like that. I call it a moonshot. It's like going to Mars. Nobody's ever done it before. But we're doing it 2 places in Nova Scotia now. And I'm pleased to say we've recently, we raised about 500 tons now. We're going to triple that in the next year. So we got some pretty major investment coming to Nova Scotia. And in my opinion, these are good jobs. We need smart people. They tend to be biologists, chemistry, those kind of lines. But they got to have a big passion for land-raised salmon and the business that can change what we do here. Aside from that, if we get the little, I don't just want to talk about Sustainable Blue because...
Chris, the last slide?
Yeah.
The last slide, Chris?
I'm involved in 4 businesses. I call them my passionate non-profits. Thankfully, I do have a couple that do make money, so I can indulge this a little bit. One of them is Sustainable Blue, which is here, Newport, Nova Scotia. Another interesting one that's right in your neighborhood here is Sustain Technologies in Chester. When you go home, Google these guys. They have the potential to change the world, soldier flies. And you should all know what they are, what they can do. The other one is Small Foods. What's interesting about these 4 companies is that they all are going to get to zero discharge and they can all feed each other what we need. So the biggest problem, I call it the 3rd biggest problem of land-based farming, is it doesn't really solve the problem of taking all the fish feed out of the ocean, grinding it up, and as my friend Yvonne Chenard likes to say, we take all the poor man's fish, the herring and the menhaden and stuff, and we grind it up and we make fish food for rich man's fish, which is the salmon. And so he's always pushing me on how can we get a better feed. And so I got independently involved in all of these different companies for different reasons, but what began to emerge last year is that, and this is the amazing thing in Nova Scotia, we can do all this here. So Sustain, which is built up in the Chester landfill, basically landfilling is a bad practice too. We're pretty good here in Nova Scotia in recycling, but we still have got a black bag we put out every week. And that goes to a landfill, which is 1,000 years of degradation. So we've developed the technology there that we can actually process black bags. We can turn the plastic back into diesel fuel. We get a product out that can be used as a bio heating source. And we can take the metals out. The result is your black bag, what we got left is a bit of glass in your hand. And we'll eventually make tiles or something out of that. But the other thing you can get off it is a stream of organic waste. And these little flies, this is the only NASA scientist I've ever met in my life who started this company. He's a real rocket scientist. And he's a smart guy. He came here, his wife got a teaching degree or a teaching position at Dalhousie University. And he followed her here from San Diego. And he got interested in soldier flies. A soldier fly, quickly, is like a mayfly. It's very innocuous. Doesn't bite. It may land on you. It looks a lot like a mayfly, which a lot of you would be familiar with here. But they have this unique property that they can eat garbage and grow like crazy. They'll grow 6,000 times their size in about 8 or 9 days. You can harvest the larvae. And everybody goes, well, that's kind of gross, but think about it. What does the salmon eat growing up in the river? It eats bugs. So these little bugs, we think we're going to be able to get a stream of garbage off of this that we can feed into this company. That'll grow all kinds of larvae that we can feed to these guys. You can't do it all with flies, and so I got involved in this other company, which is algae, and algae grows even faster than anything. So we think between that and this project in California, which is Fish in the Fields, can I get one more minute? Yep. Fish in the Fields, very passionate project of my friend Yvonne Schmidt. California has the second biggest rice paddies in North America. Arkansas is the biggest supplier of rice. The fields they lay fallow for 6 months of the year, and they're trimmed off, and they're flooded, and they're huge emitters of methane gas as the stocks decay. But you can put small fish in there, they're called California blackfish. They grow like crazy too. They eat the stalks, produces the methane, and you can drain the field. They're all on 2 or 3% slope. You can collect all the fish becomes the protein. So, none of this is harvested food out of the ocean. And this can all be done in Nova Scotia. So the choice to me is, we can invite, I call net pens, the coal industry in reverse. It just puts all the stuff down in the ocean. You don't see it, but it's all there, the antibiotics, the pesticides.